So xBrat Guardians owns the basics. So these are multiple time frame automated support and resistance zones only for NinjaTrader because the logic is extremely complex, but it works very well on NinjaTrader. So I'm going to go through the basics. Let's go through and look at some of the settings first. So the first action that you do when you load up the Guardian zones is we want to look at the data series. Okay, so we're going to right click on the chart and select data series. It doesn't matter what you're going to use, whether it's Heikin-Ashi, Uni Renko, normal minute candles, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The look back period is extremely important. So the load data based on bars, so you need to change that to bars. And we need a minimum of 2,500. Now if you want to look back further, 5,000, that's fine. But in reality, your starting point is to look 2,500 bars. So if you're on the daily time frame, that's 2,500 days. If you're on the 3 minute, that's 2,500 times 3 minute candles. So the idea is this is your first action. Right click on the chart, select data series. Doesn't matter what you're going to be using. Make sure we load the data based on bars, and the bars to load is a minimum 2,500. Visibility of the time frame zones now. So this is important. So right click on the chart and select indicators. You're going to see down here on this panel where the cursor is here, that's Guardian zones. Okay. Now, what we have on this point here is I've disabled daily. We can see it's disabled because I've unchecked the box. I've disabled weekly. Again, it says disabled and it's unchecked the box. So the only ones that will show are the 60, 30, 15. And we can see that over here on the left, 60, 30, 15. And then the Heikin-Ashi zones, which is a 3 minute, are the native time zones. So it's very important to understand if you're trading on a 3 or a 5 minute, you don't really need the weekly and the daily zones. It's nice to know where they are, but you can actually discount them on a day-to-day basis and disable them in that back end there. So what does it look like on the chart? So this is that 3 minute Heikin-Ashi chart on oil futures. So the native time zone is always in yellow, no matter what time frame. So it's important. The time frame, the time zone that you've got up in that top left of that chart will always be coloured in yellow on your chart for those automated support and resistance zones. The 15 minute zone is always coloured in cyan. The 30 minute zone in green, and the 60 minute zone is in pink. And we can see we get confluences sometimes where those zones overlap. They're very, very important. Those confluences, this is the same chart, are very important. We can see how we come to test this confluence of both 15 and 30 minute zones, and we get a nice big push back up there. Conversely, when we come back up to test that confluence of the 60 and the 15 minute zones, we get a really strong move down. Remember, the Guardian zones are there to represent those live support and resistance zones on multiple time frames. So they're there to guide you, frame your chart, give you an operational landscape. So when you get a signal coming down from this confluence of resistance zones, it's a really strong signal. Conversely, when we push through these strong support zones, we can see how it pushes through. It comes back up to test as resistance now, and then eventually goes back down again. So again, those confluence of those different time frames, very, very crucial. Let's look at it on a different chart and understand a little bit more about the Guardian zones keeping you safe. So this first signal is a buy signal on our slingshot, okay? But we have a confluence of both 30 and 60 at that point here, where there's two different colours. Now, obviously grey over green looks, pink over green looks grey. So we get a buy signal here. We are not going to take the long. There's a confluence of resistance zones above. That is when not to take the signal. That is when the Guardian zones are keeping you safe. However, when we get a sell signal here, in this case, on the slingshot, we've got lots of fresh air to the next support zone. All three targets for this particular signal are in fresh air. So this is the reason to take that trade, okay? Because we're trading into fresh air. The first one, we're actually trading into a lot of trouble. So now I've gone to forex, something different on a 30-minute time frame. So remember, when we change that time frame up here, we can see 30-minute is the lowest time frame we've got on our panel on the left here. That is now coloured in yellow because that is our native time frame. Same chart now, and I've added and checked off 60, daily and weekly, and right now we can see that we have a confluence of both 30, the native time frame, and the 60 at this point here and down here. So again, this time looking at an xBrat algo signal, for example, this is when not to take the trade. We get a 6-star sell, but if we've got a confluence of 30 and 60-minute zones there, we're not going to short into support. However, when we get a 6-star buy, we've done all the hard work and pushed through this confluence of 30 and 60-minute zones. This is the time to take the trade. See how it comes back to test this previous confluence zone of 30 and 60 minutes as support and then fires off again. Very, very important not to trade into trouble. So the next one, this is FDAX. Okay, this is the DAX futures. I just wanted to highlight what a weekly channel looks like here. So again, 60-minute zone is in pink. The 30-minute zone, because this is the native time frame I've got on there, is in yellow. The weekly is in purple. So we can see when we clear these weekly zones, we've got good trades between those and the 60-minute zones. Very, very good. But then now we're stuck in this sort of range-bound period in this weekly zone, and we keep tipping up and close. So let's take a closer look at this right-hand section. So right now we can see in this 30-minute we had a 6-star sell, but we're in a lot of trouble there. We don't really want it. We're shorting into support. 6-star buy, we're not going to take that. Up above we've got these 30 minutes, we've got the confluence of 60, it's all within that weekly zone. So there's just so much trouble. Now we've gapped down this week. We're coming to test this 30. We're sticking around, well, this is orange, but this is what yellow and pink look like together. So this is a 60 and 30. See how it actually bounced off there and actually formed this zone automatically on the Guardian zones. So now really we know we've got fresh air. If we're going to go short on this, we've got fresh air underneath this 30 all the way down to this 60. So now this might be a trading opportunity intraday on the 30 to actually take that to take that trade. It's about being patient sometimes. So a couple more things. We can actually change the colours of those zones, whether it's the daily, the weekly, the 60-minute. And we can change the colour of those toggle buttons so you can see them a little bit more clearly if you want on that left-hand panel. So in this case, I'm just going to change the daily zone to dim grey. I'm going to change the button enabled and disabled to black and dim grey, just to give it a little look at a chart to give you, it just pops out a little bit more. So there are all those. So again, when you right click on the chart, you click indicators, and these a little bit further down, you can change the colour for those zones. Again, if you're colourblind, it will help to change the colours to identify those, but keep them the same on every chart so you understand where and what time frame those support and resistance zones are. So in this case here, this is the 10 minutes. So on the 10 minute, we've got a 60-minute zones in pink. We've got the daily zone in that dim grey that we just changed it to down here. Big, thick. There's a lot of support down there. It's topped off with a 60 and the 10 minute as well. There's some 30 minutes in there as well. So it's a very strong support area. 15-minute zone again is in cyan. 30-minute is in green. And then that native time frame, the 10-minute on ES, is in yellow. we can see on the left here where we get those yellows, all of a sudden we start to form a 30-minute zone as well on the 30-minute time frame, and that really starts to then be tested again from up above here and here, and automatically puts that green over that native yellow. So very strong support. We can see that's just tested that right now. So again, remember, we're looking for those confluences. So when we get a big support at this confluence, now this is a confluence of 60, 30, native and 15. That's why it looks so multicolored. That's really strong support. When it comes back down to test there again, look what happens, okay? Lots of institutional traders will have seen this confluence down here on the left. That's the time to put your buy orders in when it comes down there to actually trade that up again, or use it as confirmation to get those long signals. And then also remember, when we push through big confluence zones like this one on the left, we've been very range bound, we've pushed through, we've come back up to test resistance, and then we've gone down all the way to this 30-minute zone. So there's two different types of scenarios there, one where we bounce off confluence zones and ones where we push through, but they should be respected very well. Now, one thing that Guardian zones will do is, if they are not tested and they're broken through a number of times, it will remove those zones automatically from the chart. It will keep you up to date with the native and with all the different time frame support and resistance zones, and it will do that live for you. Again, when we change the color, remember on those previous slides, and look back on the video, that was a little bit sort of dimmed out a little bit. It was a light grey. Because I changed that out, that pops out a little bit. And in reality, what you can do on the chart is either uncheck these. So if you don't want to see the daily, the weekly, or even the 60-minute, you could uncheck those and it won't show. And you can do that without going to those settings as well. So you can just, where there's a tick there now, if you check on that, it would be a cross. So remember, xBrat Guardian zones are designed to keep traders out of trouble. Only trade into fresh air. It doesn't matter what type of signal strategy you're using. Do not short into support or go long into resistance. Guardian zones does this automatically for you. It shows you where those multiple time frame zones are. It keeps them live and up to date for you automatically. And when you get a signal, you only take the signals where you trade into fresh air. So hopefully that helps for our the Guardian Zones users, but also for those that haven't used Guardian Zones for NinjaTrader. It's a very, very cool tool.